What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me. And today, we got more from the fall of the House of X. This time, it comes by way of a brand new miniseries. And this, the first issue titled Cable. Now, with the younger version of Cable, Nate Summers, being previously captured by Orchis back in X-Men number 24, as well as a new upcoming threat to mutant kind and humanity called the Neocracy, the older version of Cable, Nathan Summers, definitely has plenty to fight for right now. So, if you're ready to find out how Cable gets down in this all-new series, let's get it. So when this issue kicks off, we're taken to the Gyrick Re-Education Center on Randall's Island, which is a detention center created by Orchis to imprison mutants, and we see a Stark Sentinel guarding the entrance. So then we see Cable, who has stealthily made his way there through the water, and he's covered up by a telekinetic sheath that's kept him dry. And when he emerges from the water, he's confronted by this giant Stark Sentinel, who immediately goes to attack. But we know Cable's not about to go out like that, and now, as Cable mentions, in the past, he could have taken down this Sentinel with ease, but now with Stark Tech, these Sentinels require a little bit more to go down. So Cable pulls out his blade and cuts open the leg of this Sentinel and climbs inside. But the Sentinel is able to use nanotech to fill in the hole, seemingly trapping Cable on the inside. But then we see the Sentinel alerting damage to his right knee assembly, then followed by damage to his internal systems, and then, boom! The Sentinel explodes, with Cable leaping out and realizing that this is a trick that'll only work once because the Sentinel's network will relay the details of his attack. So Cable then lets us know that in this prison, they're doing some mad scientist work on mutants, digging into their minds and bodies. But there's one mute that they've detained that he absolutely doesn't want them to dig too deep into, since they happen to have the same mind and body. Then we see Cable contacting his AI assistant, Belle, which is some future tech housed in Cable's cybernetic arm, and she appears as a tattoo. So we see Cable tell her to access the files from this detention center and to copy them if she can, but the main priority is to delete them. Then she tells him to give her a second and she'll get the door open for him. But Cable has that handled, and he tells her to work on the files and he'll take care of the door. Then we see him assembling one of his high-tech weapons, and then boom! He blasts open that door and then drops a pretty dope line saying, "You know who I am. You know I've fought every single day of my life, and I'm still here. And I'm ready to fight again today, or not. The choice is yours." Then we see these guys absolutely want none of that smoke, and they hightail it on up out of there. So now Cable asks Belle, where's the kid at? But she can't find any sign of him. She is, however, able to send him a huge data dump of the files that she was able to retrieve. But Cable lets her know that he doesn't have the time to filter through them just yet because more guards approach that he has to fight off. But then he pauses for a second, and when Belle asks him what's wrong, he lets her know that something in those files caught his attention. And as she tells him that she still can't find the kid, Cable then tells her don't worry about it. He knows exactly where he is. He realizes that the kid is on Randall's Island, but not in the detention center, as Orchis is thinking several moves ahead. So he flies up out of there and lands on a nearby barge. There he encounters minimal resistance, as he tells us that they didn't think they need it. And then he finds them, as we then see young Cable being held in a tube with his cybernetic arm kept separately. An older Cable reminds us that Orchis failed to study his tech and memories when he was their prisoner, so they thought that the younger version's defenses wouldn't be as strong as his. And as he sifts through that data that Belle copied, he realizes that they thought right. Orcus had gained some intel on his techno-organics and possible future timelines. But nothing too damning, as now we see young Cable's asking who's in there with him, and older Cable letting him know that it's him. So he frees young Nate, and he takes him back to his safe house in Hell's Kitchen. Then Bell lets Nathan know, and FYI guys, young Cable's name is Nate, and old Cable's name is Nathan, just so you guys don't get confused when I'm going back and forth. But she lets Nathan know that Nate was poked and prodded, but he hasn't been corrupted or compromised. So now, after Nate puts his arm back together, he's ready to jump back into action and take on Orcus. But Nathan stops him, and he tells him that they can't deal with Orcus just yet, because Bell's data dump revealed a more immediate problem. So now Nate's like, what could be more important than this Orcus threat? They massacred most of the Hellfire Gala attendees, including their mom, and they're gonna execute their dad. And then Nathan shows him a picture of a graffiti tag that reads, "The Neocracy is coming." But Nate doesn't know what that means, and he asks Nathan what it is, and Nathan tells him that this is a threat that's more important than the threat they're facing right now from Orcus. So the next morning, the two head to Union Square to wait on a friend, one who Nate doesn't believe will help because this lady has changed her number, her address, and her job, all without telling Nathan. And Nate's like, why do you think she'll help? And that's when Nathan tells him that it's because he did some time jumping to bring her back to life. And the woman that they're referring to is somebody named Irene Merriweather. She's an ex-reporter for the Daily Bugle, and now she works for a clickbait media platform called Quick News. So when they see this lady, they approach her and they ask her for a favor. Then Nathan tells her that they need some help in identifying a graffiti artist. So she tells them that she knows somebody, but they're gonna have to change before they can meet her since, these guys are walking around with full artillery on them. But then she takes them to the NYPD's 114th precinct to meet with a detective in the Vandals Task Force. And y'all, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know that was a thing. But I looked it up and it's absolutely a thing in New York. But then the detective is able to help them out since she recognizes the graffiti work, and she tells them that he likes to work on bridges. So they go around and they visit all of the bridges around the city until they find this guy named Joxy. And then they ask him who told him that the Neocracy is coming. So this guy Joxy tells them that the lady that paid him told him to write it. And when they ask for a name, he doesn't have one, but he does have a phone number. Then we transition to the next morning after they put a new skin on the cable mobile. Now the vehicle is converted into a taxi, and Nathan finds this lady when she hails for a cab. So she gets in and gives a disguised Nathan a location and tells him that she give him an extra 10 if he doesn't stop for any lights. And I just have to interject right here because as a former Uber and Lyft driver who's been in similar situations where a customer asks to speed or skip lights, $10 is absolutely not worth the tickets or, possibly losing my license, but it's comics, so I digress. So then Cable tells her that he's good at avoiding lights. And then we see the taxi do a Back to the Future style flying car transformation and flies them up to a nearby rooftop while this lady is absolutely terrified. I mean, she is screaming for her life. So when they get to the rooftop, we see Nate already there waiting for them, and she explains to them that it was a social advocacy associate in her marketing department that wanted a long-range, slow-burn rollout. So she suggested spreading tags across the city and letting it slowly go viral, then start doing it in other cities for over 5 years. So she hired Joxy, since he had about 100,000 followers on social media. So once the two Cables get the intel, Nathan then tells us that since that rooftop was the exact building she had asked for, he still charged her for the fare. Jerk move, and I absolutely loved it. But then they fly off and they make a stop for some grub. And that's when Nathan starts to tell Nate about the Neocracy. He tells him that he slid into many DMs, timelines, during his travels. And in a lot of them, the Neocracy was the focal point. Not Sentinels, not Apocalypse. Timelines where we do it to ourselves. Then he tells them that a pharma company discovers a way to rewrite the DNA of humans, mutants, inhumans, and even aliens. Everybody. Their goal is, was, and will be to end the conflict born of what divides us by making us all the same. They evolve us. We become a race of energy beings more enlightened, unified, at peace. That individuality is taken both willingly and by force. A placid homogeny without hate or love, without any sense of life. So young Nate tells him that he still doesn't understand how this is a now problem, because the kid just can't take his focus away from Orcus. But Nathan tells him that they're using the battle with Orcus as a distraction and a starting point, that the graffiti tag is an innocuous introduction to decades of coordinated propaganda meant to prepare us for this new age. So then we see them at night at the company the woman worked for, and Nathan asks Nate if he gets tired of the fight, and Nate admits that he kinda does sometimes. Then Nathan asks him, what if we could prevent tomorrow's fight today? That they wait too long before moving on potential threats. This company, Parvenu, wasn't a threat in a lot more timelines than they were. Maybe it's because someone acted quickly. Maybe it's because we acted quickly. But I'm tired of being from the future and always running out of time. And these two get ready for action. So they approach the door, and the security guard, of course, doesn't let them in. So they up that heat, and they blast their way in, setting off all the alarms. So when they get in, Nate asks what are they looking for, and Nathan tells them that he thinks they'll know it when they see it. And then, of course, they immediately see it, as they're attacked by these slimy, pink beings that their weapons have absolutely zero effect on. And these beings wrap up the two cables. So now Nathan has Bell run the genetic codes of these beings, and they find mutant DNA from Slack, Glob Herman, and Random. So Nathan realizes that this company has successfully experimented on cellular transformation. So the two cables then use their telekinetic power to push their way out of these monsters. So as Nate is being thoroughly disgusted by the goo that these monsters turn into, Nathan tells them that they need to move ASAP because these beings are reforming themselves. So as the beings begin to reform, the cables run into a cryogenics lab, and they're able to use their telekinesis to tug on a dozen Freon lines to stop the glob monsters. Then Nathan tells Belle to get him a directory for the building. And once she gets the info, he figures the genetic mapping lab is what they're looking for. And as he scrolls through the names, we see a name Calvin Rankin, aka Mimic, whose name represents exactly what his power set is. And he's a character that's able to mimic the powers of others in his vicinity. Then he sees the name Paul Pierre Duval, who you may or may not know is another character also known as the Grey Gargoyle. So while Nathan is talking to Nate and wondering how a private company gained access to government medical records, we see Dr. Duval answer that question for Nathan. And he says to him that it was all done quite legally. And then he assures the cables that there's nothing there worth stealing unless you're keen on robbing us of all our potential. So now Nathan tells the doc that he's surprised somebody like him would be a true believer. And that's when the doc lets Nathan know that he's read up on Cable and he's not surprised to see him so jaded. So then he starts to take off his lab coat and begins to transform. And now young Cable's like, is his shirt ripping? Yes, replies the old Cable. Then Nate's like, is he getting bigger? Well, which explains the shirt, old Cable rebuts to him. Then Dr. Duval tells them that he would have preferred working without being disturbed. But if you choose to antagonize me, then you also risk the wrath of the Grey Gargoyle. And we see the doc has fully transformed and he looks ready for a fight. But before we could get that fight, that's the end of the issue. Wow. I gotta say, y'all, I love me some Cable. I always thought he was a pretty dope character, and I like that we're getting a series with the two versions working together, almost kind of like a buddy cop show or something. And I'm really digging this love-hate relationship that they have with each other. It leads to some pretty fun banter between the two. So yeah, the Neocracy sounds like some serious business, but you guys let me know in the comments, which cable side do you agree with? Is the Neocracy a bigger threat than the current one in Orcus? And also, let me know what you thought about this first issue. I also really like the artwork in this issue as well, and I'm definitely looking forward to the second one. So if you guys enjoyed the video, then please help a brother out and drop a like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more icons in the comic book world. And also, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a second to thank each and every one of you guys for helping this channel grow to over 1,000 subscribers in about 6 weeks. This growth is way more than I imagined when I first started this channel, and I just couldn't be more appreciative and grateful for the opportunity to share something that I truly enjoy. And I'm not stopping anytime soon. So thank you guys once again. And if you would like to help out the channel even more, super thanks are now also available as well. And soon I'm going to be putting together some membership opportunities. I just have to decide the best way to implement them and what I'm going to offer to members. So if any of you guys have any ideas on that, I'm willing to listen. But again, a huge thank you to each and every one of you guys. And with that being said, it's about that time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out.